Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hockey Cards Gongshow Podcast. I am Josh. Hey, Troy, what's going on?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Is the off season over yet, Troy?
It's getting there. We're slowly getting there. Again, though, we always worry that we're not going to have enough content, and I think the hockey off-season gods keep blessing us with random stuff here and there. So as long as that keeps going, I'm good.
That is true. I do miss games, though. It would be fun to have some games to talk about and point totals, league leaders, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's where the juniors have to fill in. They filled in for a couple of weeks, a week ago for the boys, and then the girl juniors aren't until January. But the guys tried to fill that void for a little bit.
Well, if you're new to the show, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. We Troy had a successful weekend gong show retreat to northern Minnesota. Everybody survived. Nobody broke any bones, lost any limbs, so that's good.
Yeah, I called it the first official unofficial Hockey Cards Gong Show retreat. It's in the books. I think the big thing to come out of it is we booked hotel rooms for Toronto. that was our main accomplishment.
Yes, we stepped off the ledge. We committed to Toronto, so we're going to look forward to seeing tons of people there. Finally, a show with a bunch of hockey cards. That would be pretty sweet. The one byproduct, though, Troy, of you going to our cabin, as we call them in Minnesota, not cottage, is you didn't hop on an airplane to go to a card shop this weekend. Did you miss it a little bit, or what?
I was thinking about it. Actually, we got a message from a couple people on Instagram. And I apologize, I never write down the name. Someone told us about a shop in Massachusetts that had a lot of hockey. And I think we got another comment from someone about another shop. So I was kind of thinking about that. But didn't miss it. We had fun. I will be on the lookout for another weekend if I don't have anything going on. But now stuff kind of picks up. School's going to start in Minnesota next week. Hockey season for me as coaching starts. And, kids' activities start filling up again as fall and winter sports seasons come up. So may not be a lot of opportunity for trip taking besides the planned fall sports expo in Toronto.
Yeah, life doesn't stop. I guess one more housekeeping item before we get rolling is, as I know a lot of you are aware, our box opening, I guess, pack opening series on social media, so TikTok or Instagram, where we opened a 2019 OPG Platinum Hobby Box in the hopes of chasing Cale Makar, Jack Hughes, Adam Fox, is over. Thank God. It was, if anything was going to, we like to say, Troy, that we want to promote growing the hobby. If anyone was going to make somebody quit the hobby or not join, this would have been the box. I think we ended up with, and this is extremely generous, so I'm totally admitting, probably dramatically overstating, I think $25 worth of cards in a $225 box. Brutal.
Yeah, that is pretty depressing. Just imagine if that was your first box you ever bought. You're like, all right, I'm going to put down some money, whatever it was, 200 some bucks, 250 bucks. I'm going to buy this box. Let's do it. First time ripping, and all of a sudden that's what you got. You're like, well, this might not be the sport, or maybe it's more, this might not be the product for me. But hey.
Yeah, I'm going to give this hobby a shot.
Yeah, but like you said, it was just good to show that not everything is roses when you open a box.
No, not at all. And I like to think we fell on a grenade for the hobby.
For sure.
We took that box so nobody else had to.
Yep.
And it's over, thankfully. We did start an extended hobby box series because, of course, for us, we're degenerates. And the worst box in the history of all hobby boxes couldn't possibly stop us. So you guys can look forward to watching that. And already the cards are better. So it's restored a little bit of my faith in humanity.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was when you posted the first pack. Someone put in the comments the line from Grand Theft Auto. I won't say it all, but he's like, oh, bleep, here we go again. And that cracked me up so much. So I'm glad people are getting humor out of it. But Yeah, the extended box is rolling now. What are we on, pack 3 or 4 that was out there?
I think 3 was today,
yeah.
And it was not to belabor the point, and I knew this was going to happen because this was a whole Reddit thing when I first opened the pack. It was the Jordan Kyrou High Gloss, of course, numbered to 100, which is supposed to be numbered to 10. Yeah. So what Upper Deck did in Extended is they flip-flopped the numbering for the tribute cards, only the tribute, so the 0607 tribute, whereas the High Gloss, which should be numbered to 10, are numbered to 100, and the exclusives, which should be numbered to 100, are numbered to 10. So I got a Jordan Kyrou High Gloss numbered to 100, which is kind of trippy and strange, and it's just confusing everybody. But like I said, good start. Okay, Troy, we've got a literal ton to get through today. So why don't we get rolling with the game plan?
Sure. We'll start with the show by looking at some off-season pricing updates to get a pulse check on where we are at currently sitting with off-season pricing. Then we will tackle hobby news, and there's quite a bit of news to talk about around big card sales. There's a big card show out west and a new grading company entrant that's coming into the market. Then we take a quick look at the upcoming rookies set to be released in the 2022-23 MVP or Upper Deck MVP release. And finally, we will end the show with some new product release information and our personal pickups and or sales.
All right. So off-season dip, as we like, I guess as we've been calling it. I don't know. Over the last week or two, I kind of feel like there's been a lull. Do you?
Yeah, it does seem kind of lullish, but I didn't know if that was just me not recognizing everything that's going on or getting a lot of notifications, but it does seem kind of like blah right now.
And I think that's natural, right? The season ended right around June 15th, so we're 2.5 months almost since the end of the season. We're about 6 weeks or so from the start of the next season, and we're pretty much square in the middle of the summer malaise and no hockey. And just like, I guess, being in break rooms and looking at eBay sales and observing other people, I kind of have felt like that we're in this sort of ho-hum, I don't know, maybe if there's a better way to describe it or not, but state for the hockey market. And that's what made me interested in taking a look and trying to find some data to really kind of see where we're at. And before we get into some of the, I guess, current pricing and notable cards, a couple things that I was thinking about that I wanted to mention. First of all, I think it's really hard in life for anybody, and myself included, I'm sure you, Troy, not to be a prisoner of the moment, right? And so if we are in a lull, if we're at the sort of the height or center of the off season, however you want to put it, and it feels like all the prices are dropping and it's just not as exciting, that kind of our brains, I think, trick us into thinking that this sort of object permanence, right? And this is the way it's always going to be. And so I think what is helpful to remember, and I try to remind myself in situations like this, is hockey market is seasonal.
Yep.
Right. And as you and I have talked about it before, we talk about, Minnesota company Target, right? If they compared every single month of their sales to November and December, they would be depressed 10 months out of the year. Right. And so I think a lot of what's happening right now is really expected. It's what you would expect. It's the logical answer to why is this card down? Oh, it's August 31st.
Yeah.
Right. And if I look at the data from last year or pre-pandemic, cards typically dip into this percentage anyways. And then in the fall, when the season ramps up, they typically go back up. It helps, I think, explain, and I certainly don't want anyone to be panic selling at this point or thinking that, because we're going to talk about a few cards that have some pretty shocking drops in a little bit. And, I don't think it's indicative of someone like Sidney Crosby, who we're talking about all of a sudden between the middle of June and now becoming a horrible hockey player who nobody likes and everybody hates. Right? Really, nothing's changed other than the fact that there are some macroeconomic factors that you have to consider, of course, but nothing's changed. He hasn't played any more games, right? It's just the natural seasonality of the hockey market. So with that being said, right, what I wanted to do is try to get a small subset. It's always tricky, right, for the podcast, Troy, where I could look up 150 cards and rattle off that data and everyone would be asleep or not remember anything within 2 minutes. So it's kind of hard I thought real long about trying to find a subset that I think would be at least somewhat representative of the market. But that's, I guess, my caveat here is there are going to be outliers. There are going to be other cards that maybe have different trends, but I thought I think these cards were instructive. I also decided not to look at raw card sales for this because condition can, and I mean, this is a Captain Obvious statement, but really has a dramatic impact on value. I'll give you an example. If anyone wants to go look at 2015 Connor McDavid Young Guns raw card sales, you would see over the past 2 months that there's sales as high as $850 to $900 and as low as $250. Right. And then, you look at the graph or the data and you're like, wow, look at the market volatility in Connor McDavid over the summer. But if you go and you find, especially those $250, $300 sales, and you go actually into the sale history, go to the original listing and look at the card, those cards were junk. I mean, the corners were all white and dinged and beat up. Right. And so it's hard to just look at, with raw cards, it's hard to look at data and remove the variable of condition. So I only looked at graded cards. And I did think of one way, though, to draw a distinction between graded cards. This is a theme that I've heard, and I don't know if you've seen too, and people that respond to our content, especially lately, about graded card values and pop count, right? Well, high pop cards should be maybe falling sharper than low pop cards. And so I did kind of create two categories there as I took a representative sample of graded cards that have relatively high pop counts for hockey, and then graded cards that have lower pop counts for hockey. So on the high pop count side, I took all Young Guns because it makes it easy. I did Kaprizov, McDavid, Matthews, and Cale Makar. Over the last year or two, those are probably the four biggest names or sellers. I did all PSA 10 with the exception of McDavid, and I think you know why on McDavid. There was a couple days ago a McDavid PSA 10 sale that's probably real that was so far out of bounds of the last 20 sales that it really kind of skews the data to a point.
You meant probably, did you mean probably not like a shill or did...
Oh, I don't even know. I mean, it just takes a person
outlier. You got to throw it. Like I wouldn't use that for any data analysis, especially it being yesterday or the day before when it happened, and it was so outside the bounds of what we've seen. Just get rid of it.
It was like 3 times what the card had sold for in the last, and so, and again, it just, I don't know if it's. I'm not even saying it's shill. It takes, who knows?
Yeah, maybe someone did buy it.
Maybe somebody did buy it, and I guess congrats to the seller in that case. But when you look at recent sales and you go up based on last sale, you could have a crazy low sale or crazy high sale that you just have to make a value judgment based on, okay, is this representative of the market? No. So instead of just removing it, I did the BGS 9.5. Okay, so let's roll through the data. So the Kaprizov 2020 Young Guns PSA 10. Pop of 1701 and climbing pretty rapidly over the last 6 months. At the end of the offseason, or the end of last season, beginning of the offseason, was about $408 around June 15th. Its low is actually today or yesterday, the 29th. We're recording this on the 30th. So is this the offseason low? I don't know. It's about 14% off from where he ended the offseason. So actually, there's more dramatic decreases that we'll go through in a minute. But here's one that right now is currently at its low, and who knows if it'll dip further or if it'll start to rebound.
Yeah, and full disclosure for everyone listening, I actually own this card. And let's just say I'm down probably 40% just off the top of my head. So this one hurts to keep looking at every day and watching those pop counts go up, and now seeing at its low. That hurts, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but hey, he's a wild player. Yeah, we love him.
I mean, it's in the collection. It's not getting sold anytime soon. It's in the case, in the display case.
Okay, so then would be the McDavid 2015 Young Gun BGS 9.5. So again, still gem mint, just BGS. Huge pop count on this one.
Yeah, that's massive.
7,496. So at the end of last season, June 15th, Troy was $1,935. Right now it's $1,200. So it's about 38% off of its high. Its low so far this offseason is $1,110, and that was on July 31. So it has rebounded slightly from the low, but it's off pretty significantly from where it ended the season, right? I don't think the pop count has gone up dramatically in the last couple months. So again, this is one where logically, right, it doesn't, I have no idea what's going to happen to the McDavid values going forward, but logically you might think if you were in the market and you wanted a McDavid Young Guns Gem Mint card, and you weren't scared of the BGS pop count, that now would be, we say off season, the buying season. Now might be a good time to buy. We'll look at the Austin Matthews. So that would be the 2016 Young Guns PSA 10. That has a pop count of 2,568. So that was selling June 15th, end of last season at 1,575. Right now is about 1,456, only down 8%. Its low was 1,300. So not a lot of variability in the Matthews PSA 10 this offseason. And then the last guy is Cale Makar, who's 2019 Young Gun PSA 10, pop count of 1,393. Boy, I didn't look how much that's gone up, but I would guess that's gone up a bunch in the past year. Yeah. Coming off the Stanley Cup, right? So values are pretty sky high in the middle of June there at about $1,063. Right now, about $841, so still down about 21% from the end of last season. And the low so far this offseason was the 13th of this month at $745. So if you're smart, you could have got like a 28% discount if you would have bought a couple weeks ago.
I mean, even now, though, that's still pretty enticing. If you're a big Makar believer and you think he's going up, this is when you got to get in now, probably, or else it never comes back down.
Mm-hmm. So those are the again, Kaprizov, McDavid, Matthews, Makar, they're down. These are high pop count, gem mint, graded cards, 14%, 38%, 8%, 21%, respectively. Then I took a group of 4 kind of lower pop count cards, so in like 500, 600 or less. First one I looked at was a Jason Robertson Young Guns PSA 10, so that's 2020, pop of only 170. He was trading or selling in the middle of June for 194. Actually, today's at 250, so it's up 29%. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if there's just a lot of people jumping on Robertson this summer, or it's the low pop count, or what the reasoning is, but he's a guy too, and we should probably at some point devote more time to talking about him, because if you had to ask me, name a guy where his values nowhere are near towards his production, he might be the first person I mention.
Yeah, I mean, he had a fantastic year last year. I had to look up his stats again. He's one of those oddballs last year that scored more goals than assists. I mean, he had 41 goals, 38 assists in 74 games, so over a point per game player. Yeah, I mean, if you look through our comments on some of the posts on Instagram, a lot of Robertson people out there like thinking he's pretty cheap and buying. So I bet it's a kind of a culmination of people getting in on him during the offseason, but that's probably driving the price up with that low pop count.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what's happening. Like I said, maybe it's a different topic or a topic for a different day, but it's either people just like waiting, or there's just something that's not connecting with collectors and Robertson, but make a mental note there. So the next guy was a 2019 Adam Fox Young Guns PSA 10, pop 591, was selling middle of June for 250. Now is 199. It's about down 20%. His low was 181 on July 15th. Same year, 2019, Nick Suzuki, Young Guns PSA 10, popped 541. At the end of June, it was selling for about 400. Is about 345 right now, so it's down about 15%. His off-season low so far was 300. So you could have got a 25% discount, and that was August 5th. And then the last guy wanted to not be so recent, I guess, so I did look at a 2008 Stamkos. Young Guns PSA 10, pop 334, so again, pretty low pop count. Was selling at the middle of June for 715. Today is about 613. So it's down 14%. And it's low. This was kind of shocking a little bit. Sold for $360 on July 10th. So from $715 to $360, it's about a 50% discount somebody got there. Not a bad pickup. And so you look at like Robertson, Fox, Suzuki, and Stamkos, so my representatives of the lower pop PSA 10 cards, up 29%, which is our anomaly, down 20%, down 15%, down 14%. If you guys were all looking at the table here on the spreadsheet that I made, I think the thing that would stand out is it seems like they're all just 8 of these cards we looked at. Again, a small sample. It seems like the range on average is about 15 to 20% that cards are down at this point in the year. And to me, Troy, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, that kind of makes sense. That's kind of what you would expect if somebody asked you to guess, right, at some point in June. Well, in the height of the offseason, Josh or Troy on the end of August, where would you expect cards to be? I think down 15 to 20% would be a reasonable guess. So to me, it's felt like a lull. It's felt a little, maybe like a malaise in some perspectives, I guess, but I don't think the sky is falling on the hockey market. And it might be a couple, 2-3 more weeks or even 4 where they're down. That's just, again, what happens in the seasonality of the hockey card market. So a couple takeaways here, Troy, is first of all, it's still the buying season. If there's any card that you've been targeting or coveting, you should expect that card will be probably more expensive 2.5 months from now. And if you're able and willing, now's probably the time to get it. The flip side of that is if you're selling, this is not a good time to sell.
No, do not sell. Pull them off. Do not let anything you got listed, pull it. Wait till the season starts.
Or unless you have to, then I guess we get it. But it's not like I said, it's not a good time. But I think another note on selling, though, is now is a good time to start thinking about your strategy and to get ready for the start of the season. Maybe organize your cards or your collection so that if in that first week somebody jumps out with 6 goals, you're ready to capitalize on that, because we know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, for
in
sure.
that case, is the market's going to go nuts, right? For that person. So I think now's a good time to prepare. Okay, so last thing, and I have to give a big caveat here because, again, what we'll say often, maybe even not often enough, is we don't ever want to give buy-sell advice. But in my research, I did find some prices that were too juicy not to share. So if anyone is a big fan or collects any of these players, or if you think, not that I think, that there's some upside potential, these might be some interesting cards to look at. I'll start with the big one. So Sidney Crosby, 2005 Future Watch Auto, a BGS 9510, right? So top grade. Just sold, I think yesterday, Troy, for $5,800. Wow. This card on June 15th was $11,260. Wow. That's half of its value gone. Again, numbered out of 999. Yeah. Somebody got a good steal there. So if you've always wanted a Crosby FWA, now would be probably a good time to start negotiating with people based on that comp. Another interesting one that I found is the Draisaitl 2016 Young Gun PSA 10. Relatively small pop, 527. Yep. Just sold, I think today, for $729. This one was $1197 on June 15th. Okay. So it's $450 down. Pretty significant drop. A little bit on the cheaper end, if you're a Dylan Cousins believer, this one might surprise you, Troy. So his raw Young Guns, I've seen a lot of sales less than $5. I've seen some in the $2-3 range. This card was selling a year and a half ago for $30-$40. And now I'm pretty sure you can find, and even going back as far as the end of last season, was at 15. So if you're a Cousins believer, you might want to try to find some deals there. Another guy is Carter Verhaeghe. His 2019 Young Guns Raw is, you can get anywhere from 99 cents to $3. He was $15 on June 15th as well. Two other quick ones. Stamkos, his 2008 again, Young Gun BGS 9.5, just sold for $198. It's the lowest price in a year for that. So if that's a card that you've been eyeing, that might be a good pickup. And then another one that personally I find a little bit interesting is 2016 Kyle Connor Young Guns BGS 9.5 is he had a pretty decent year last year, right? I want to say like 80, 90 points, something like that.
No, I just pulled it up. 47 goals, 46 assists, 93 points.
Yeah, I should have wrote the count down here, and I didn't. But so his 2016 Young Gun BGS 9.5 just sold for $70. It's its lowest value since 2020. It's kind of crazy coming off his best season.
That's interesting. Was that the BGS 9.5? Is that what you said? Yeah, it's Pops 213.
So pretty small. But if you're a Jets fan, if you're a Kyle Connor believer, those might be some ones to look at. So that kind of wraps up that conversation. Again, not giving buy advice, certainly.
But I think,
who knows, all these cards might tank. But.
They might tank, but one good thing is this is just the subset that kind of you identified. If you do the research out there, I'm sure there's other cards out there that you can find good deals on. So this just kind of, hopefully this makes you decide to want to look and see if you can find any of those value plays. And just, I can't remember if we mentioned it or not, but if you look at Card Ladder, and if you have that and they do the indexes over the past quarter, hockey is still, I think, up there for return. I believe it's either first or...
It fell pretty sharp today.
Yeah, it's still first on the quarterly return out of all the indexes they track. However, on the monthly, it's the second to worst performing index that they have. So just one of those notes to be aware of and what's going on.
Ouch.
Yeah, but like we said, it's kind of expected a little bit, the monthly for sure. But, the quarterly probably gets, because it's just a weird spot because we're in the off season, but guess what? We're getting in the injection of new products that are coming out fast and furious because obviously Upper Deck's catching up and with all the different releases and years we're on. So it's a kind of really interesting time.
Well, to me, that's the big variable. And the big unknown for the last month or 6 weeks of the off season is, and we'll go through new releases, there's a whole backlog of new releases yet to come out. And what might those do to prop up the market? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Lots of hobby news this week, Troy.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty intriguing week for we kind of knew some of the stories, but then some other stuff popped up. And it's funny that the first thing you're going to talk about after the last subject, we were talking about the off-season lull and pricing. And now it's like, well, forget all that. We're just going to throw that away and just tell you about these record sales that are happening. Take it away.
If the question is who is impervious to the off-season dip, it would be 99 himself, Wayne Gretzky, where I'm sure some of his lower value cards are dipping as well, but not his 1979 Topps rookie PSA 10 Pop 2, which just closed at Heritage a couple days ago for $1.2 million with buyer's premium. That would be a record, Troy. It had previously sold for $720,000 on December 20th. That's a nice and tidy 67% increase.
Good return.
Since the last sale. So thoughts on the Gretzky sale?
I mean, it's kind of around what we thought. Or I shouldn't say I thought, like the analysis or the pundits were saying, over $1 million. And it kind of ended up where a lot of people thought it would. It was good to see. I mean, it shows Gretzky is kind of that rookie card, kind of impervious. Obviously, this was the Topps one, not the OPG, which goes for a little bit more. But it was really interesting to see, and it was good to see another record sale with hockey. But again, like we've kind of talked about, it's nice to see other cards besides Gretzky rookies be the top sales, but hey, we'll take what we can get right now in the off season.
It is the defining card of the hobby.
Yeah.
The OPG version, as you said, is actually quite a bit more valuable. Heritage had brokered, I guess, a private sale for one of the two OPG PSA 10 versions of the card. In the last sale, there was $3.75 million. Mm-hmm. So more than 3 times what the Topps sells for. Interesting enough that, well, a couple things that I thought of is that's a big difference between the OPG and Topps. I get it. OPG is the collector's brand of choice, but they are both Pop 2. It is, 3 times the value. To me, that I guess I think that the Gretzky or the Topps version is a pretty good purchase.
Oh, for sure. And actually, on the Instagram post, David Chow actually chimed in on this. We should have an emergency phone call to him and get him on real quick. But he actually talks about a little bit on the differences, and it was interesting. So I'm going to direct people to go look at the Instagram post. And it's Shanghai Card Collector if you want to see what his comments were on it. Yeah,
do you think he bought it?
No, no, I don't think so. Maybe he'll chime in on it now that he's heard it and say, "Yeah, that was me."
Well, I'm surprised you didn't buy it. Yeah. That Minnetonka hockey goalie coach salary.
that $1 an hour that it comes out to after you factor in all the time. Nope, not this time. Maybe next one.
1.2 million hours of goalie coaching. Minus taxes.
Yeah.
1.7 million hours of goalie coaching, and you could own
not
2 Wayne Gretzky rookies.
Not yet. I would love to own it, but I don't think it's not in the near term future for me.
The other thing that stood out to me, and this is totally, again, where we're so far out of our realm, I just don't know. But it's interesting when it comes to these Gretzky rookies, PSA 10s, it seems like Heritage is all over them.
Yeah.
And not, they seem to make every sale, and I have no idea, this is just me talking, how that came about or how they got so tied to Gretzky rookies.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's just a prominence or, they've had the history with it. I don't know. I don't know auction houses. I can't tell you previous auctions. I know I was reading through our comments and the notes, and we said, what about Golden or PWCC? I could throw out PWCC just because they're so new to the actual having their own auction site and everything. They used to be eBay consignor, or they used to sell on eBay up until a year ago when they got kicked off for supposedly shill bidding or whatever. So I can see why PWCC probably doesn't have a lot of them, and I don't know about why Golden or why Heritage is the big one, but I'm guessing it's just
PWCC's big auction always on eBay though.
I thought they always sold. I thought they sold everything on eBay, and then they were making their own auction site. And then that's kind of
I know that.
And then that kind of got maybe they did have their bigger auctions on their own site. I don't know.
Welcome to the Hockey Cards Gongshow, where 2 hosts talk about stuff they have no idea what they're talking about.
It's like to ramble and hear ourselves chat, but yeah, we don't know. Someone correct us why Heritage is, or actually David Chow, you tell us why Heritage is the number one, Gretzky seller for these cards to come to auction, or even brokering the private sale. That's interesting to see too.
The Gretzky was sold in Heritage, I think what they call their platinum. They all these auction houses, right, have their own brand. And I think it was the platinum sale. I did jot down a couple other hockey related sales from that same auction. So there was a 79 Gretzky OPG PSA 9. So not Topps OPG, but a PSA 9, Pop 91, sold for $132,000, down pretty significantly from its high sale of $272, which is less than half, in April of 2021. So a year and 4 months or something like that.
Yep.
So that's a big L for whoever owned that card.
Yep.
There was another record, though, a Gongshow Mount Rushmore inductee.
There we go.
Very prestigious. A 1955 Parkhurst Jacques Plante rookie PSA 7, Pop 40, with only 11 higher than the PSA 7. Sold for record $8,400 with the buyer's premium. Its previous high sale was $7,800 in May 2022. So nice to see Gongshow Mount Rushmore inductee.
Yeah.
Setting a record price there.
Well,
that may be vintage.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how, he gets added to our Mount Rushmore of goalies, and all of a sudden there's a record sale. coincidence? I don't think so. I think it was all part of the plan, but it's good.
And we didn't even get a thank you card.
I never got a thank you, but I'm glad because I think those jock plants are just criminally undervalued. Like
I know. It's a really cool card too. Go check out our Instagram.
It's awesome looking.
Okay, not a hockey card, but a 2003-2004 Tampa Bay Lightning championship ring sold for $6,400. It was not a player's ring. It was given to, I guess, to a staff member. Kind of cool though. Pretty sweet looking. And what really, I guess one of the reasons why I included that is, man, you don't really think of the championship ring with hockey, right? It's all about the cup.
Yeah.
And your day with the cup. But the ring is pretty similar to like what an NFL or MLB or NBA ring.
Yeah, they're definitely nice. And if I remember right, I'm assuming now, I could be wrong, someone will correct me. The company that makes all these rings is usually Jostens, and they're actually right down the road. I think they're based in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I know someone that works there through youth hockey. They live in the town we live in. So it's kind of interesting that they make those rings, and you kind of hear about the backstories. So they're definitely nice. I mean, they're just like the MLBs or the NBA's nice big rings. Even though I always do, I don't know, I get a little sad when I see championship rings being sold. And I hope it's that they don't need the money and they just wanted to get rid of it because they don't have any use for it. But I always
in the same auction, Horace Grant, the NBA legendary player, was selling all his rings.
Yeah, that's where I get a little sad because it's like that ring is, I don't know, you can call it a one-on-one, I guess, but it's made for the player. And I always get a little sad when those get sold that they had to sell them because they hard times or couldn't afford something that happened to them. And, you got to do what you got to do.
And the last card I wanted to highlight, there's a specific reason behind it. It's a card we've actually already talked about today. It's the 2015 Connor McDavid Young Guns BGS 9.5. Again, population 7,496. And the reason why I bring it up is I think when you go with these really high-end auction companies, you have to have a really, really high-end card. Otherwise, it might not work out so well. So this card sold for $1,200, which is a little bit of an ouch, and I'll tell you why. So it's a True Gem Plus. That means it has 3 9.5 subgrades and 1 10. Pretty high-end card. Mm-hmm. Last November, any BGS 9.5 McDavid Young Guns was selling for $2,500. So to be at $1,200 right now. So again, I don't think that some cards like we talked about with the Gretzky rookie with the Pop 2 and at the super high-end, ultra kind of rich end of the market, maybe the offseason doesn't matter. This is one where had you owned it, probably wasn't the best time to sell.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But we've heard, I mean, if you go out to PWCC or Golden, because I think they all run weekly auctions. And if you can take the time and dig through all the lots, you can we've heard about some people getting pretty good value.
Pretty good deals.
Yeah, looking through those. It's just one of those odd marketplaces where, you got the high end, but people forget they also have, weekly stuff in there that you can bid on, and it's lower value stuff.
Yeah. Great point. So another card that's sold in the Platinum auction, which is not a hockey card, but is definitely worth bringing up, is the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle SGC 9.5, sold for a record $12.6 million. It's the highest selling sports card of all time. So there's a couple things that, and as I try to relate this back to hockey, or I guess points that I would make, Troy, the first is high tide raises all ships, right? So any record price is going to, that'll raise the ceiling on the Gretzky rookies, right? Because everything kind of falls into suit.
Yep.
And so for the collecting hobby, that's a very good sign. The other thing I would mention is, and I'm not sure if you've noticed this yourself, but when you look at over the last 6 months, we've had a number of all-time record sales. They've all been in SGC holders. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of curious to me, Troy, is when you look at still the submission reports, hardly any hockey cards are getting submitted to SGC.
Yeah, I just think they're behind. They were known for vintage baseball is kind of how they broke in. But then when, every other company started stopping submissions, and they kept rolling, and they had pretty good turnaround times. I don't know if the hockey market ever really gravitated towards them. And we know BGS has a huge hockey market, I think, from Canada. I was reading some comments in one of our posts about how BGS made a really big play in Canada for grading when they first, started making the push. So there's a lot of BGS hockey, but I don't know why SGC just can't get its foothold, that seems like, in the hockey market. Even though I do have an Ottinger SGC 10. So I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to do my part.
Way to go, Troy. The hockey card market owes you a thank you. So now the whole hockey card community and Jacques Plante owe you a thank you. Okay, so again, interesting. There's been lots of record sales over the past 6 months. There was a Honus Wagner just a few weeks before that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's it on the Heritage auction. In case anyone's ever curious, too, any of these auction houses, whether it be Golden or PWCC or Heritage, you can go on their website and look at past auction results if you want to see what types of cards are being sold, what the sales price is for these cards. So, and just wanted to pass it on.
Yeah, and I'll pass on another tip. Remember, if you ever get a card that you want to go to one of these, this super valuable $1 million cards, you can always negotiate the buyer's premium. They don't always get to keep all of it. You can try to keep more of that. Just remember that if you ever get one of those cards.
Pro tip. Love it. Okay, really super quick note before we get into grading companies. Burbank Card Show was this weekend. From everything I've seen, it seems like it was pretty busy. We've also heard from a number of people that hardly any hockey, which sucks. Yep. And I guess doesn't shock me. It's in California.
Well, I mean, let's use our Vegas analogy. It was West Coast. I went to the Vegas show, nothing. Burbank, I can't even imagine. Like what we did here, there was maybe some Gretzky or Ovechkin or maybe Crosby. It was like, those a small amount of those top guys and singles here and there, but nothing. If you went out there for just hockey, you're going to be disappointed.
That's the note there. Okay. We want to chat a little bit about grading companies this week. There was a couple of decent announcements in one new entrant. One that's actually not in our notes, Troy, but talking about Beckett reminded me that Beckett's done a lot of innovation. We'll probably get into it a little bit more down the road as far as, is it too little too late? Are they innovating the right things? But one really good sign for them is that they are now accepting online submissions, which seems crazy that I'm even right. It's like Beckett has a website in 20.
It's funny you said that because I totally forgot about that until you said that, and then I remembered hearing a story where someone was it was probably sports card nonsense where they were just like. Or no, I don't know who it was.
I think it was Coach Co.
It might have been Coach Co. It was Coach Co. It was Coach Co. Because he's like, they're coming into the they're coming into the 2000s now by having a website where you can actually submit things. And I mean, if you've seen Beckett's website, a month ago, it is embarrassing how bad it was.
Yeah, just a little quick note. Coach Co has a fantastic TikTok account where he does lots of all sports cards updates and news, and go check that out because we get a lot of our news and info from there, and it's just really, really good. But so Beckett is coming out of the Stone Ages. It's your Stone Age, it seems like. But the main company we want to talk about a little bit is this new company, Tag Grading. And want to be a little bit careful because really I think it's a great reason for us to talk about grading companies in general and where the grading card market is and what needs to happen. I'll just throw this right off the top. I am not going to sit and endorse tag grading today, nor am I anti-tag grading in any way. I am, they talk about like what type of consumer you are with technology or new products in the market, right? There's always early adopters, right? People that jump onto products right away and love to be the first to test and try, that sort of thing. When it comes to grading companies, I am not an early adopter. I am a sit and wait and see person. Is that where you fall, or are you more on the early adopter side? For sure.
And when I originally kind of pitched bringing this up, the reason I brought it up is like, this is the first grading new kind of grading company that's come out since we've started this podcast. So that was kind of the main reason why I wanted to bring it up and kind of talk about it. And then we started talking, well, let's talk about grading cards, in general. But yeah, I'm not endorsing them. I think some of the stuff they're doing is interesting, but I also think some of it is complete marketing BS that they're saying. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So I'm going to let Josh, you kind of start with the overall grading.
I'll start with the preamble, and then you can take because you're the one that really looked into tag much more than I have. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that and this is just myself, and I think actually from what I understand about how you collect, Troy, you're probably pretty similar too. I don't really have an allegiance to any particular grading company.
No, I don't. I have zero allegiance to anyone. I mean, at times I thought, SGC is good because I can get it back quicker. You know, my father-in-law passed away and he had some older baseball cards, and I sent them to SGC just because I wanted quicker turnaround, and they were vintage baseball, so I thought they'd look cooler in the SGC holder. But then at times I bought PSA, I bought BGS. I have no real big allegiance to any of them.
Yeah.
Except don't do HGA. That's why that's my one thing.
Oof, there. So the current, I guess, cast of characters or market leaders in the grading segment, of course, are PSA, SGC, BGS, and then CSG. There are some real problems that in grading from a collector's perspective or investor's perspective can be really frustrating. To me, the biggest problems right now are consistency and transparency. And I just got a huge submission back from PSA, and I stare at these cards and I'm like, how did this card get this grade? Mm-hmm. It just seems illogical to me in some cases. And I should say that I mean that both ways, right? Where I'll look at a card that got a 10, be like, oh my God, the corner doesn't look great. And then I'll sit and stare at a card that seems pristine to me. That's like a PSA 8. So, or SGC. I've had both that with PSA and SGC. Regardless of any issue though, Troy, what won't change, and whether you love a particular brand or you hate another brand, the market will always gravitate to the company that delivers the highest value, right? And today that's PSA. Yep. And we can sit and debate for hours and debate with a bunch of, I'm sure you people that are listening that think it's BS, that PSA has the most value. And you might be right in many or all cases, but the fact is, it's not even close what company delivers the most value. And today that just happens to be PSA. Will it always be that way? I don't know, not necessarily. I mean, I think there was a time when BGS was miles ahead of PSA. So don't think that it goes back to prisoner of the moment, right? Don't assume necessarily that PSA will always be the top dog.
And PSA being the top dog is kind of a recent thing, right? Within the last 5 years, probably. I don't think they've been the top dog for like 15 years. It's been recently, I believe, is when the tide started to shift.
And frankly, too, a company like Tag that is entering into the marketplace, they're a little bit of a victim to their predecessors, where we've seen, especially as a lot of money's come into the sports card collecting market, there's been a lot of innovation, which is good. Innovation is very good. And I'm absolutely pro innovation. We've seen a lot of companies, like you mentioned, HGA, and there's been others that they come in, they make huge claims, tons of promises, puff their chests out, are full of bravado, and then crap the bed shortly thereafter. And what it does is it makes you cynical or skeptical, or it can make you cynical or skeptical to some degree of anyone that's trying to enter the marketplace. And we'll kind of talk about, I guess, some of the details on Tag in a second here. But last thing I wanted to do is just cover in general what I think any new grading company needs to do and I know you have some thoughts on this too, and I want to really anxious to hear those in a minute. What any new grading company needs to do to have a chance, right, to overtake someone like PSA or BGS or knock SGC out of the running, so to speak. To me, the keys to success for any new grading company are really simple in principle, but I think very difficult in practice. My general success formula would be accuracy plus consistency plus time will equal the credibility in the marketplace and then translate into value. So whether it's Tag or somebody else, to me, the fatal mistake these companies continue to make is miscalculating the time it takes to build credibility. You can't come in and 3 weeks later say, we're better than PSA.
Yep.
You've done nothing to prove that. And again, where I come from, where it's the accuracy and consistency in time, it's just going to take a while. And so if I was starting a new grading company and I was looking for investors, I would be talking to those people and saying, this is a 2-year process to launch this product. We have to be patient. We can't come out of the gate and pretend that our company is the greatest thing from sliced bread and every other grading company's crap. And because when we do that, the second we have the slightest hiccup, all of our credibility is gone, right? We need to stay under the radar, build a cult following, prove ourselves, prove our consistency, and that is probably our best shot. And it's probably not what investor types want to hear because they want to give you money and get a whole bunch back right away. I just don't think that, and I have no idea what Tag's plan or any other company that's entering the marketplace is. And maybe that's their thinking. And if so, then I guess kudos to them. But that's just how I would approach it. I know you have some thoughts as far as what you think new grading companies need
yeah, mine are more just
to have a chance.
Yeah, I got thoughts. Hold on a sec. No, I mean, and I'm going to preface mine. I've never worked for a grading company. I don't know all the back ends. I'm sure it's obviously difficult, logistically and finding enough experts and all that stuff. But my first thing was please stop using the 3-letter names. Let's differentiate ourselves a little bit. And of course, the new one that's coming out, of course, is a 3-letter name, just to make me more mad.
They have to fit it on a slab.
I know.
So that's probably
it's so funny. It's like PSA, SGC, BGS, CSG. Go down the line.
Very acronym heavy.
Acronym
yes.
And working in a corporate setting, I hate acronyms because that's all I hear all day. Now, getting more of the meat of it, I would say clearly explain your process and what differentiates you. What differentiates your service? Like, you don't need to come out and say, like you've already touched on this. You don't come out and say, we're just going to be the best. That's it. We're number one right now. But lay out why you are different and why there is value using your service. Start building that, like that slow build. You said, 2-year plan is kind of what you would think. That's what you can't, like you said, you can't come out and just pump your chest and be like, we're going to be number one. It's probably not going to happen. There's some established players in this market, but at least have a plan in place to show why you have a value and what differentiates you. Why should they use you over the established players? My fourth one I said was trust. Obviously, you kind of mentioned that with your formula. You need to show why collectors, investors, and flippers should trust your process and your results, or maybe show why why you're only focusing on one of those segments. I'm assuming you'd want to get as many people as possible and focus on all of them. But at least, again, this kind of relates to my previous point. Show why your service is good for those types of users. I think the companies kind of forget about that sometimes, and they're just all about grading without showing those other pieces. And my fifth one and final one, and this just comes from watching some of the stuff that happens. Before it even happens, have a plan in place what you're going to do when a mistake happens, because it's going to happen. You're going to get burned. You're going to authenticate something that wasn't, it was fake. But don't make it look like a fire drill. It seems like all these companies, when this happens, it's just fire drills all over. They don't have communication between different departments and different stuff comes out. So I would say make your plan already. Already go through some scenarios of what happens, what you're going to do when inevitably something goes wrong. So that's kind of my big 5 points that I would start with if I'm starting a grading company.
No, I really like your last point, because I think that's like, we would call that, right, crisis management in the business. And these companies pretend like they never in a million years anticipated a mistake would happen. Right. Yeah. If you have a proven process or a plan in place to immediately go into action, what often happens is those mistakes end up building your credibility in the long run, right? Because nobody expects a company to be perfect. Nope. What we want as a consumer is to put our trust in brands that when they do make a mistake, that they will fix it and they will make it right.
Yeah, like we've said, do not follow the example of BBCE on how to handle a mistake. Just do the opposite of that and you'll be fine.
Or have your founder come on and babble nonsensically and get emotional and angry at people.
Yeah.
It's have that team in place, that crisis management process in place to tackle these situations and turn a bad situation into, like I said, something that builds your brand. Okay, so before we get into tag a little bit, I do have one more big picture question, which I think is worth talking about. So right now there's kind of 4 preeminent grading companies, as we mentioned. Is there room for a 5th?
I don't know,
sports card hobby.
You better bring some good stuff if you want to be the 5th, or even. And I apologize, we're forgetting our Canadian friends because they have a couple of companies up there, right?
KSG and Mint.
Obviously, they're not. I don't think they're as big as PSA or BGS or any of those.
Nope.
But yeah, it's at some point this gets really crowded. The more companies that are coming in, and then there's all the other ones that obviously we didn't even bring up that are out there. They probably have such a small market share, they're not worth it. But yeah, with tag coming in, is there room for another one? I don't know. They're going to really have to differentiate themselves and show kind of the steps we laid out. They're going to have to prove that.
Yeah, I think especially too when you think about hockey, where there's just not the number of percentage of submissions that are hockey, I guess, that are of the overall submissions is pretty small. So you're really spreading that out.
Yeah.
Not a lot of submissions over now another company. And so I don't even know the answer to this. I don't know if there is an answer, but it's just worth kind of pondering or interesting to ponder. It's like, would there be room for a 5th, or for any company, whether it be Tag or somebody else, to really come in and succeed? Would they have to knock somebody out of the picture, so to speak? What would your guess be? So let's say Tag is successful. Is it just the 5th option, or do they kind of push somebody aside?
I would say if they probably have to push someone out of the way. And at first I would thought maybe CSG, but now that CSG's got that eBay thing going on, they're under. Who are they under? I can't remember who they're under, but they've kind of upped their prominence a little bit that way. But I would assume, I don't know, 5 companies, 5 big ones seems a lot.
Yeah, it's a tough question because if you kind of break it down, right? Well, PSA is not going to be the first to go, of course. But the risk with a company like PSA, when you get to the top of the mountain, is you inherently stop innovating, right? Because now you get all the submissions, and now your business is that Fabergé egg, that golden egg that you're too afraid to crack. And it opens up a huge window for innovation for other companies to come move your cheese, as we'll talk about in the business world, but they're not going to be the first to go. Then you have SGC, who's setting all-time records galore, even though they have a really tiny foothold in hockey, particularly. It's hard to think that they would be really close to being pushed out. Then you have CSG, which you just mentioned, is in cahoots with eBay, and that's pretty good, right, to get a footing in the hobby. And then there's Beckett, who we know there's a lot of issues with, seems to be efforting to work hard. And on one hand, they would seem like the logical candidate, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, I'll do these Instagram posts where I look at like Topps, like we did Ovechkin today. Yeah. All of his top cards are in BGS numbers, all of them, right? And that's not like 40 years ago. No. That's 2005.
Yeah, well,
that most of these cards.
I could see that too, though, because BGS was a little more prominent back. I mean, they're still prominent. I talk like they're just dying, but I mean, they're still around.
They're giving it a go.
Yeah.
So kudos to them. Okay, so I don't know what let us know your thoughts on, is there room for a 5th grading company, whether it be Tag or anybody else? I would love to get more feedback there. But Tag specifically, I think the reason why they're worth bringing up is there's 2 things, and then we'll get into your breakdown, Troy. The first is there are some interesting aspects of what they're doing, especially going on the transparency part and how they plan to use computers to try to be more accurate. That struck a chord with me, and where I was going to completely be out, and I actually, in a good way, didn't find this, is that they didn't try to shoehorn the words artificial intelligence
but the thing is,
into there, which is the biggest crock of crap when grading companies do that, because true AI costs millions and millions and millions of dollars in engineering to procure. And I'm sorry, HEA, but you didn't have AI.
No,
There's no
like just stepping back to HGA, their downfall was when they kept pushing AI and they said they're going to come out with that video, and then it was like a QVC ad. It was just the worst thing that could have happened, and it at the end of the day, it wasn't AI.
Yeah,
I'll keep my.
You'll go in a second, but there are some interesting things. And then the second thing to me, before I pass the baton to you, is when you look at their investors and board of directors, it does seem to be real business people, not guys in their garage like we would be, Troy, if we started a grading company.
Well, I promise you, I won't have a bunch of videos on them and then the next week accept a job. So
yeah. And then you have people like you're mentioning, like Jeremy Lee, him jumping out with them is really interesting to me. And I don't know Jeremy, never met him. It would be great to meet him someday and learn a little bit about him. But I just look at it, from my bird's eye view here of the situation is, wow, what a risk.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but, I assume he did his homework and he's a smart guy and he knows what he's doing. But to jump on any brand new grading company when you're a top influencer, going back to the track record of other companies that have other launched, it could be a recipe to look kind of dumb if things don't work out. And so I think in a weird way, that makes me more interested in learning about these. It's like, wow, if Jeremy is willing to take the risk that he is to attach his brand to this brand, then I don't know, maybe there's something looking at. But so that's my preamble. Why don't you kind of let us or give us sort of the tag 101?
Well, and the reason I looked into this even is just because, again, this was like the first new grading company that's come up since we've started this podcast. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And I wanted to take a look at them. Now, I will say all this information is right from their website. So if you really want to dig in, you can go to their website. I don't want to act like this is some marketing tool because I have some things I kind of have questions on, but I don't obviously have a tag representative to call and ask. But I just want to give a little background on what they're looking at, like for their process. It looks like online. And let's start with it. Obviously they have the 3-letter name. It's technical, authentication, and grading. I put this in the notes. I said the tagline and then kind of gave a sigh because that sounds dumb. But it's to use innovation to apply technologies and to create for each collector transparency, accuracy, and consistency for every graded card. Great. It's a marketing BS line. They just throw it out there so you think they're doing things well. But it's interesting. It's kind of the stuff we talked about, like if we were going to start a company. So good for them.
Yeah, it's a big promise.
It's definitely a big promise. And then if you look at
and they should make a big promise. I'm sorry, I just it's not. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just a lot to live up to, and that's where the rubber will meet the road. Is how over the next year or two can they live up to that promise and build.
And I struggled even putting that in because I am not a big. I read a lot of stuff, and even in having a corporate job, and a lot of it just you can make it sound as good as you want, but I want to see the actual process and the proof. But anyways, if you look on their site, it looks like they're kind of breaking things down into 3 steps. So there's a submission step, and this is interesting because I don't know if anyone else does this. They're actually sending submission kits. So if you go on their website and decide to do an order, they send you all the supplies. They send you the case or the box, send you penny sleeves. I think they save you some kind of like card saver to submit it. They have these rigid deck boxes, they call them. So they actually send you the stuff with prepaid shipping on it too. So I believe they send it to you and then you can ship it back. I'm going to guess.
So you must have to pay for your order up front then, right?
I don't know if you pay for your order up front. I didn't actually try to go through it. I could have looked at that, but let's just say I'm guessing this is maybe a limited time thing. Who knows? I'm guessing maybe down the road they might start charging. But it was just interesting to me is just having a submission kit sent to you. I thought that was kind of interesting. But the thing is, they show
if you try to break down why they would do that, I'm sure that it has something to do with helping their back end operational processes go smoother by having a consistent way that cards. I'm sure that if we had somebody from PSA or BGS or SGC on, and they talked about all the ways cards are sent to them and how that adds time to their processing, I'm sure it would be a bunch of crazy.
And plus, I'll get to this in a little bit, but the minimum order you can do right now is 10 cards. So it's not like they're sending you this kit for 1 card. Sure. But my thing is, they showed an example where they slapped the the postage label on top of the kit, I can tell you right now, I can tell what's in that. If I knew what tag was, unless they figure something else or I saw a wrong video, I feel like they're going to get stolen all the time. Oh. I think they need to figure that out. And maybe I just missed something.
By like shady post office employees.
We see that now with just regular boxes. I mean, all they have to do is look at the address and they can figure it out. And now you have the box actually showing it. Anyways, that's something I think they're going to have to address. I think it's going to be a problem that comes up if they are using what I saw on the video. Now here comes so that was the first step, Smish Kit. Then they got the grading technology, and here's where I just roll my eyes. They use photometric stereoscopic imaging. I'm sure it's something. I'm sure it's patented. I'm sure it's something that's legit. But to me, I just roll my eyes when I hear terms like that, not knowing what it is. So that's kind of their automated photo. Take the picture of the card and use that. I don't want to say AI because they're not using that, so I don't want to say it.
Well, I'll chime in for my marketing background. This is a slippery slope in marketing when you're talking about, okay, how do we communicate the value of our product? And on one hand, we want to make people feel like we're just not a bunch of people off the street saying, I think this is a 10 or this should be a 7, right? They're trying to say that we're using technology to create consistency. And they're also trying to differentiate themselves and maybe cover a patent, but they're choosing buzzwords or big words that when put together, maybe you think sound impressive, but mean nothing. And right. That means that, and so the rule of thumb I was given very early on in my career is the best marketing explains very complicated processes in the most simple term. Right. And so I would, be a little critical of that use of terminology, but that's a minor thing.
But again, it's one of those words, but listen, I want to see the process. Show me a video of the process, which I haven't seen yet. Anyway, so that was kind of second leg, I'll say. And then the third leg, this one is, we've actually talked about this in the past, the digital reports. We've always complained, why can't I get something from these companies, PSA, SGC, BGS, that shows why my card got the grade it did? They're saying they're going to provide these. They're going to have kind of a code on the slab. It will take you to a website. You can see, obviously, Josh, you showed me an example that was on an Instagram story by Jeremy Lee, what it's supposed to be showing, kind of it had like circles around where some of the surface issues were, corner issues and all that. So it's something we've always asked for, and it'll be interesting to see if they can integrate it. And
that part's cool. Yeah. That I think that's a big differentiating factor for them. Yep. And if they can pull that off, kudos.
Yeah. And if it's repeatable. Now, if it's only on, certain cards get it, or sometimes, if you're seeing these issue reports and it's maybe one little thing and you get a 7, they got to be able to explain that stuff. Like it's got to be repeatable. So that's kind of the 3-leg approach. Okay. It's kind of interesting. And then right now, which this is a smart move too, they're limiting what you can send in. So I just want to make sure everyone knows it's 2000 to present year cards. They have to be standard size. They said 55 point is the max. They're not accepting die cuts, rounded, any autos, any acetates, no memorabilia cards or lenticulars. If you don't know what that is, that's the ones where you kind of move them and the picture moves, kind of like that.
Yeah, like in motion.
Makes sense.
Or whatever.
You got to limit what comes in. You start with the basics is what I'm assuming they're trying to do, which,
sure.
Okay, makes sense. Limit it. And then right now, I don't want to go into their pricing too much. It's about what it looks pretty competitive, but the least amount of cards you can send in is 10. They're doing you can either send in 10, you can send in 20 cards, or you can send in 40 cards. And then the pricing depends on what service or what turnaround time you want. And they're offering 3 of those, 14-day, 30-day, 60-day. So
that's interesting. And so here's another, that made me think of another bit of advice I would give to any new grading company. And I actually think this is really important. Under promise and over deliver on turnaround time.
Yeah.
If you think, in the worst case scenario, that you'll get a card back to somebody's 20 days, say it's 30-day turnaround and deliver it in 20. You will build so much goodwill in doing that, where if you say it's 21 days and you return on the 21st day, it ticks people off, right? And these companies can't seem to understand that. It's like they want to push it that so hard and it's very short-term perspective, I guess, versus long-term perspective.
And so the pricing's on their website. I don't want to read through all of it, but just if you did 10 cards at the highest or at 60-day turnaround, so that's be the slowest, I guess, it would cost $210, so $21 a card. So that's your lowest that you can do. And then if you wanted to do 40 cards at the 14-day turnaround, it's $25 a card or $1,000 total. So if you want
I was just going to say the pricing seems in line with like what you'd see with SGC. I think SGC is like $23, right? If you go through like a group submitter but their turnaround times are about a week or so. I think they're definitely living the under promise, over deliver. So this would be comparatively a little bit lower.
I was thinking they had to come out with pricing in this range. I mean, if they came out $20 higher than everyone else, it's almost sunk right from the beginning. I don't care how much technology you're trying to throw at me and tell me about everything. And then, so that's kind of the pricing. Again, go to their website, look at it, or not. I mean, if you think this is just another fly-by-night, like I said, I'm kind of one of those sit and waits. My last point was slab design, because that's, everyone, we really focus on the slab design where you got PSA, they still have the red and white, the typewriter printing out stuff. But so the slab design, I know, Josh, if you looked at it, I'm assuming you did. They give their spiel. It's got you hear this from every company. It's just more marketing. It's secure. It's got UV resistant. It's ergonomic. Great. I don't care. I expect that from a slab. There's grading on the 10-point scale, but then they're also, this is kind of interesting, they're adding an additional 1,000-point scale. So, and I think what they're trying to do, I believe I read this, is they're trying to differentiate. You could have a 9 or whatever, a tag 9, but it could have a 1,000-point scale of whatever, 949, and one could have one at 920, is what I'm guessing. And now you can start seeing there's a little differentiation between those 9s.
Kind of like BGS with the subgrades.
It's kind of like that with the subgrades. And I think they're also doing subgrades, which will be, I don't think they're on the slab, but they're on the report, that the little QR code. So the slab has a QR code is what they showed, and you can scan it and see that, population report shows all the stuff that's wrong with your card or all the stuff that's great with it. I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, the slab kind of is interesting design to me. It's kind of see-through, so it looked kind of cool when they turned it. But again, I just want to throw this stuff out. Go to their website. You can find videos. It's interesting when you go to their website and you go to like learn more buttons. It's YouTube videos of Jeremy Lee talking about it on his show. They didn't like produce any of their own stuff, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But again, just want to throw this stuff out. I'm sitting back and waiting. Like I see some stuff in here that I just kind of shake my head at. But if they can come out and show why they have value, and I do like the slab design. I think it's a cool concept. I just want to see it executed. I'm afraid that it's not going to play out like I think it is. That's what the one worry for me is.
Well, who knows? And we don't know that, right? And that's going to come down to their ability to execute a business.
Yep.
Right? Any successful business has a great idea that provides value to the customer, is differentiated from its competitors, and that they can actually run a successful business. And I don't know anything about them, so have no idea. That'll be the fun of it. Just sit and wait and see. But what I think is we're saying with any new company like this is the innovation is still good.
Yep.
Right. And whether or not Tag or another company makes it or not, it doesn't mean that they can't have an impact on the industry. Go back and look at all the ways the original iteration of the XFL has impacted the NFL.
Nope.
Right. The XFL was a failed venture. But so many of the things and so many of the innovative features that they brought to a football broadcast are now seen in every NHL or NFL game.
Yeah.
So, and that's where you could even give HGA a little bit of credit, where they did not do a great job at executing their business. The custom labels were generally innovative.
Very cool.
And pretty well received by the marketplace. Yep. So, best of luck to these guys. Certainly, I'm definitely not rooting against anyone or anyone's success.
I was just going to say that I want to take a step back. I know I'm very skeptical, but I don't root for this company to fail. I want them to succeed. I hope they succeed. I have a little skeptical tinge to things, but again, if I come off really skeptical, I don't want to. I do want them to succeed. I hope they succeed. We'll see.
any company that comes into the market and grows and thrives generally, I think, is a good thing because it means that the market should be growing and thriving. Yeah. Okay, so enough on that. Interesting stuff, interesting ideas. Best of luck to those guys. We'll wait and see what happens. Switching gears, Troy. So something significant came out in the last week, and that is the checklist was released for 2022-23 MVP. Now, normally we would talk about this probably more in the context of new releases, which we'll get into afterwards. But I think that because this is the first time we're seeing on a checklist the brand new crop of rookies for the next season, it's worth maybe kind of putting the spotlight on it and chatting a little bit about who's on the list. Yep. So there's 29 total rookies on the checklist. I looked at last year. It's the same. Yep. I didn't go back further than that, but 29 new rookies featured. The guy with the, speaking of spotlight, that they're really featuring in MVP is Matt Boldy, our guy.
Telling you.
Minnesota Wild.
It's all looking like roses for the Wild with all these prospects we have, I guess.
So he's the first rookie on the checklist and also has the rookies checklist card that has all the rookie SPs. So here's a question that I have about, and we'll kind of get into some of the names, but well, actually, maybe we should do the names first because I think it'll make more sense to do it that way. So one other quick note is if you look back to, and this is where whether you think MVP is an awesome set, you think there's value, or you think it's not value and it's retail, whatever it may be, why I think this checklist is noteworthy is, so I went back and actually compared name by name, 76%, so 22 of the 29 players on the 2021 MVP rookie checklist were Series 1 young guys.
That's actually pretty cool. I did not know that. I didn't even think to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Because that's one of the things I was trying to think about, right? Is like, well, if you don't like MVP, what is the fact that these 29 players were chosen? What does that mean for the Series 1, Series 2 extended? Like when we'll see these players, young guns cards. If you want to look at the checklist, you can go to our Instagram. We have a post there. You can go to Cardboard Connection. You go to Beckett. Yep. Pretty easy to find. A couple names to highlight other than Boldy, of course, would be Marco Rossi, another Wild guy. While they're eating, as they say in the breaking world. He is actually the Wild's number one prospect. I don't know much about him. Do you know anything about Rossi, Troy?
Just have any notes? I put some notes. He's young, 20-year-old. However, he's small, 5'9". So that will always be used against him. But he's a very offensive player, great hockey sense, hard worker, has to work hard to make up for his size. And he played 2 NHL games with the Wild last year, and he's recovering from, he got COVID-19, but he got that heart condition that comes with it. Myocarditis. Is that where it makes your heart bigger or something? Or like it? I can't remember.
That's inflammation of the heart.
I don't. Yeah, so he had that, so he's recovering from that too. But sounds like everything's on track, and hopefully he's on the roster this year. So seems like a good player.
And there's the doors open with Fiala leaving. Yeah, right?
For sure.
He's the center. Sure. Anyone else stood out to you?
When I was looking through the checklist, obviously the names that have a connection to Minnesota are the ones that stand out to me. I thought it was really interesting that they had Jack LaFontaine on there. If the name sounds familiar, he was played for the Gophers. He's older-ish, but 24, which is still young for a goalie. I'm very surprised he's in the release because they have him with Carolina. He's actually released by Carolina and signed with Syracuse, which is a Tampa Bay affiliate. However, I get it. This list was made before that even happened, but I still thought it was interesting to see his name on there. And then Bobby Brink, obviously, that name jumped out. He went to Minnetonka. He's 21, played 10 games in the NHL last year, but he's out for 4 months. He had hip surgery, so just be aware of that if you were thinking about trying to prospect on Bobby Brink MVP cards. That he won't be playing for a while.
Okay, and then there's a couple other, Minnesota people, as I'm sure you all are learning, are insufferable with our Minnesota connections. But a couple other big guys are Owen Power, of course, D-Man for Buffalo. He was the number one pick in 2021. Pretty young, 19. Is he more of a defensive?
I think so. I don't remember hearing him being this offensive threat. I'm assuming he'll add that to his game or improve on what he already has.
Sure.
But being 6'6", you got a huge reach, so you'll be very hard to beat. Plus, these guys are so young, 19. So he's got a lot of years to develop too, even if it needs to take that long.
Yeah, and then the other guy that stood out to me a little bit was Matty Beniers, who is the second overall pick in 2021. To me, what kind of piques my interest is playing on Seattle, which is year 2, right, from their expansion year. On any team that new, there's going to be a lot of roster opportunity.
Yep.
So, and maybe this could, and Shane Wright's not on the checklist at this point, but this could open the door for players like Beniers, who is an MVP, and other young players too. So as far as missing Troy, and I don't know, I know there's some redemptions. There's a number 1 draft pick redemption. There's a divisional stats, but the other thing that of course are any of the most recent draft picks.
Yeah.
The 2022 guys. This would be like, the big ones were Shane Wright and Slavkovsky and Logan Cooley and all these guys. And I think the notes there are they could be in the redemption. Some are not even are going to college. Some, so we don't even know what their NHL status will be. But so, this is when you'll start to see guys more from the previous draft, not the most recent, if that makes sense, right? So the big question, Troy, in all this is, as I was looking at these names, and again, feel free we didn't roll through all 29 of them. So you have this class, you have guys like Power, Beniers, Upper Deck sort of anointed Boldy as sort of the leader of the pack for this set. And it hurts to say this because, and Rossi, because I'm definitely a Wild fan, and these are my boys. But I don't know if this has the same ring as Cole Caulfield, Trevor Zegras, Jeremy Swayman, or even like a Moritz Seider or Raymond, or even the 20 Kaprizov and Lafreniere and Robertson and Sorokin. I don't know, man. This could be, and again, the games will change it. You could have a guy come and set the world on fire, but on paper right now, this could be a down class.
Yeah, I mean, it has nowhere near the hype that last year's class did or the one before it. So it's, when we're talking about Wild players being the number 1 prospects, being the Minnesota, fatalist, kind of get worried. But just from a hype perspective, it's not. But again, once the game's getting played, we'll see. I mean, I am interested, like on Owen Power, to see him. But again, when the number 1 pick's a D-man, what's that going to do for the hype train? I don't think that's going to do much.
Well, and even if it turns out to be a down rookie class, quote unquote, then you have Connor Bedard, who will be the white knight and save the hockey card market. Maybe. Well,
and for sure, with the redemption set, right? They have the number 1 draft pick redemption, so that's got to be Slavkovsky, right? That's got to be that card because it's the number 1 pick from the 2022 draft. I'm assuming that's a...
But we don't even know if he'll carry the same...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I guess that's a little bit of my point is we've been pretty spoiled.
Of guys coming right to the pros,
2 years now, and even going back a third where you have Makar and Shesterkin and Jack Hughes in 2019. You got some really strong rookie classes where a lot of averages, right, might say that we're due for maybe a dud. I hope not. But that could have a big effect over the next year and really, either hype up or put kind of a buzzkill on a whole lot of releases. Now, I guess maybe the good news there is there's still a huge amount of 2021 product that's not even out yet. But, so that I don't know. I just don't feel the same energy right now. And hopefully one of these guys who, whether he's in MVP or comes in a subsequent release, will play real well and everyone will go bananas over him. Okay. So want to highlight a couple other new releases super quick. Today, 31st, Clear Cut scheduled to come out. We've talked about that pretty much at length. I'll give a couple really quick bullet points just to make sure everyone understands the basics, I guess. About $150 a box. It's 1 card, high risk, high reward, huge checklist. I think there's 100 rookies. You could pull like a red ink canvas auto that's worth a ton, or get a rookie worth $10 or less. Still a really cool set. We'll be following it closely and let everyone know when the big hits are pulled and what the secondary market values are looking like. So we mentioned with MVP checklist is out. That's scheduled for September 8th. Retail would be a week later. And then the big question, the interesting question, I think, Troy, is when it comes to new releases is what's really next. Yeah. I think the general sentiment is to be credentials, which right now is showing September 28th. But, we've talked a lot about holding dates in the past that you'll see on Blowout or David Adams or Cloud Sanchara over on the Canadian end. And there's a whole bunch of 2021 products that are scheduled as of, in those holding dates at the end of September. So this would be Allure, OPG Platinum, Artifacts, Skybox Metal Universe, Ice, SPX, and Synergy. And now if you have MVP coming out in early September or a week from now, like we think, then if you look at the sort of the ballpark dates for like Series 1, which is middle of November, right? How are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how are 7, 8 brands, including credentials, going to come out in between? It's still, I'm going to be really impressed when Upper Deck, if and when they pull this off, because it sounds like a big headache to me.
I can't believe all those are going to come out, but that's maybe I know nothing.
Sure. Okay. So then you also have some 2021, 22 products that are kind of more off in the distance that will come out late this year, early next year. So like right now, 2021 SP Authentic, I think is like early December is the target date. Don't count on that necessarily. And then Stature would be early, I think, first part of the year. And the one thing, though, that I do want to ask you about, because I have a theory, is I still can't find anything on 2020, the Cup. Like nothing. It's like a ghost. Yeah. There's no mention of it anywhere. So I have this little half-baked, zero inside information theory that is based on only the scary and crazy thoughts in my brain. What do you think the odds, Troy, that Upper Deck combines the Cup for 2020, 2021?
Yeah, man, that'd be a huge checklist.
Is there some sense to that?
I mean, maybe
at this point, do you think
through it and just get these two out, and then they can focus on 2022? Maybe. I just don't know how people respond. Would people be excited that you're going to have 2 years in this Cup product? I don't know. I guess personally, I don't want them to. I hope they have their own releases. But if they need to play catch up and we're not seeing anything come out about it, maybe that's what they're planning on. It's weird. We just haven't seen a word on, and they're on 2020 Cup, right? We haven't seen anything, like nothing.
No. And maybe I suck at Google and someone can send us a link to some information or some crazy forum or Discord server or something that has some information. But it's just weird to me that there's nary a mention hardly anywhere. I don't get it. So that's where the crazy ideas start cooking in my brain as to, well, if you haven't mentioned it, then maybe it will be in 2021, or I don't know. But we shall see. Okay, so you've made it this far in the show. I'm sure you just can't wait for us to talk about our personal pickups. And this is where we become two seriously disappointing individuals. Because spoiler alert, between the two of us, we bought all of nothing in the past week. So Troy, why do we suck as hockey fans?
So I'm actually gonna call it out. You didn't see the change in the notes, did you?
No, I didn't. I printed them, and it has nothing.
I did buy something yesterday, and it was not exciting. I bought into like super cheap breaks that were on Whatnot late last night. And I'll count that. And then it was funny because in our notes, we're both losers. We didn't buy anything. Now I just changed that to Josh is a hockey card buying loser this week because he didn't buy anything. But no, I think this week, it was life got in the way, a lot of stuff going on. The Hockey Cards Gongshow retreat was going on, so you had to plan for that. Just not a lot of time to buy things. And, we keep talking about pricing and everything. And it's like, hey, dummy, go out and look because now's the time to buy, man.
Yeah, off season is buying season, right? I think it is hard to buy. It's hard to get excited about like part of about buying when the prices are, you just feel like are going down. That's it's kind of like nobody wants to talk about buying properties when the market, when the housing market's bad. But 5 years later, you always say, geez, if we would have bought 2 rental properties, we would be set for life, kind of thing. So our mission in life is to buy some hockey cards this week. And if that's as tough as our life gets, I think we're doing
I'm pretty
good.
sure I'm as much as high risk, high reward. I think I'm going to get a box of Clear Cut just to play a little Russian roulette and see what happens.
All right. Look for that on our social medias. Thank you all for listening to this week's Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. We truly and sincerely appreciate the support. The growth has been amazing, and we're just blown away that you've given us a little spot in this hobby. If you're not following us on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or TikTok, it's all at Hockey Cards Gongshow. Please follow us there. Hope you have an amazing week, and we can't wait to talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.